Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool every single day. It is great to be back. We had a fantastic trip to Montreal. We kind of went silent for a little bit because we had a lot of work to do, and that is not over. I'm going to tell you guys all about what's going on for us for the next couple of weeks, but it is phenomenal to be back in the studio and to see all of you here. I see that Tyler Fisher is here, Blade Blur, Paul Casilio, Adrian Leon, Thorazine 666, Doi Owen, Abby Jameson, Philip Nyagi, Wesley West, Paul Adamson, fantastic. I'd love to see you all here. Thank you so much for supporting us. A reminder, when we do EP Live, it is absolutely a live show, and we interact with the chat. We have a great segment called Let's Play and Chat, and today we're going to stream a little bit of Dead Cells, because this show is absolutely very Dead Souls focused, which I think Blade Blur was pointing out. But we're going to get started with the rundown, and I've got a couple of dedications. First of all, to Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, who passed away last week. She left us so many gifts. She was so talented. It was shocking news, not fully unexpected because of health issues that she's had, but yeah, just we adored her, and much love to Aretha Franklin's friends and family out there. Tyler Fisher has been going through the EP Live catalog to catch up, and says he wears his EPN shirt at least 3 days a week. That's very sweet of you, man. That's so awesome. And he #PlayForever, which is great. We've got some new members or sponsors. I don't know what YouTube is calling it this week. The Native Lava, Pew Pew Pew, Brian Quinn, Craig M1R3. That's awesome. You guys are fantastic, but let's get started with your rundown. The animated version of a galaxy far, far away keeps getting bigger. Star Wars Resistance is premiering on the Disney Channel in October, and the first trailer showing off the look of the show was released last week. The show is created by Star Wars animation legend Dave Filoni and focuses on a timeline and characters that are seen in the current Star Wars trilogy, although the show focuses on a young pilot named Kazuda Xiono, who is tasked with spying on the First Order. The trailer has a sleek, computer-created anime style and a family-friendly vibe, which Disney hopes will make it appealing to Star Wars fans of all ages. We also see that BB-8 is in the series, that Poe Dameron will be voiced by Oscar Isaac, and it's been announced that Gwendolyn Christie will return to voice Captain Phasma. So don't be surprised to see lots of other actors from the big screen Star Wars adventure show up in the show if it's a hit. Will it be a hit? I think it's going to be a hit. It looks fantastic to me. It definitely does feel a little bit more kid-friendly, which I don't think is a bad thing, because I think when you looked at the Clone Wars or Rebels, they both looked like they were made for a much younger audience, but they ended up having a lot of depth and a lot of value. And if you remember, George Lucas has been, pretty upfront about the fact that he's always created the Star Wars movies and the universe with kids in mind. And it starts there, right? So I think Dave Filoni has been a fantastic keeper of the flame with regards to Star Wars. He always comes up with great lore. His characters become indelible, artifacts of the Star Wars universe. I saw that firsthand when I was at Star Wars Celebration last year, and Filoni's Rebels panel, where he announced that they were canceling the show after this last season. It was amazing. Like, there was so much energy, so much enthusiasm, and so many tears for the fact that it was over. But I think people will be super happy with this new stuff. I like a lot of the technology and the aesthetics of what's going on with the new trilogy. Obviously, there's been some issues with The Last Jedi and all that stuff, but there's lots of wealth to mine out of what's going on with the current Star Wars trilogy. I am a big fan of Poe Dameron. I love Oscar Isaac. I would like to see Captain Phasma do more than just fall into a fiery pit. So I'm looking forward to this. Resistance kicks off in October, and I, for one, am going to be there. Now, Dontnod is about to take a bite out of television. The game studio's action RPG Vampyr was released earlier this year, and now the game is being transformed into a television property. Wonderland Sound and Vision, which has made shows like Chuck and the OC, and DJ2 Entertainment, which focuses on game adaptations like the upcoming Sonic movie, and already has a partnership with Dontnod on a Life is Strange adaptation, have joined forces to make Vampyr a new show for Fox 21. Now, Fox 21 is a serious partner for the new Vampyr series. The production company, which is a division of 20th Century Fox, has a history of tremendously successful shows like Burn Notice, Sons of Anarchy, The Americans, and Homeland. Needless to say, this is extremely exciting news for the Paris-based game studio, and it's probably going to take a couple of years before we're going to be watching Vampyr on the boob tube. But congratulations to everybody at Dontnod. I am a fan of Vampyr. I said when I reviewed the game that I loved its rich narrative and the this Victorian London that we got to explore. I think it's going to be fantastic. A fantastic setting for some really rich tales and some really gruesome bloodshed, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So we've got a doctor who has to be a killer at the same time. He's a vampire doctor, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I think they can serialize that really easily, and if they cast well and if they frame it right and make it spooky and make it gory, it's going to be a blast. And I'm just happy for Dontnod because it really underlines the importance of their dedication and their drive to create these narrative, superstructures in their games. They really work hard at it, and this is potentially the big payoff, not just in financial terms, but in terms of crafting awareness for the universes that they're building. So thumbs up for that. Now, the Meg is a monster. The Meg is a monster, and not just on the screen. Warner Brothers has got to be happy with the performance of the Meg. The Jason Statham-led shark thriller just held on to the #1 box office position internationally for the second week in a row and has now crossed the $300 million mark. The Meg is a co-production between Hollywood and China, which is reflected in its international cast and locations in the film. It's also a pretty terrific summer escape, and I'll have my review for you a little bit later in the show. Now, another WB movie, Crazy Rich Asians, is also enjoying a fantastic launch with a #1 weekend in the U.S. of $34 million and some big numbers as the movie continues to open up in new markets internationally. That flick was directed by G.I. Joe Retaliation's John M. Chu, and it stars a host of Asian actors, Constance Wu, Henry Golding, and Michelle Yeoh, and it marks another successful example of Hollywood's newfound desire to offer viewers more diversity and representation in the stories that it brings to the screen. There are already talks about sequels for both films, and I think this is fantastic. I think what this is, underlying is that the idea that Hollywood needs to kind of diversify with its characters and its stories and its settings is being proven correct. The money is coming in, but I don't think it's just about the money. I don't think it's just about these box office numbers, even though that's what this story is about. I think it's about us getting more interesting characters and more interesting stories that we're surprised by. I was surprised when I saw the Meg to see the diversity on screen, surprised that we are seeing movies like this. Obviously, there's been different kinds of, people from all over the world cast into movies like this before, but you can see that there's just a little bit more thought, a little bit more care, and a little bit more sharing of lead roles that's happening now, and it's great. And I actually think that the Meg really benefits from that as well. So, I'll have my full review a little bit later on the show, but I think this is fantastic news, and I hope that this trend continues and we get more representation and more diversity in the stories that we're getting out there. And it, maybe it becomes a little less like we don't have to talk about it anymore. Wouldn't that be great? We just get great stories and we see, a reality that exists for us when we're not in the theater screens reflected on the theater screens. That's what I'm hoping for. Now, Blizzard loves the idea of taking Diablo with you wherever you go. Announced last week in a fun video featuring Blizzard co-founder Mike Morhaime and Nintendo's Reggie Fils-Aime, the Blizzard-crafted juggernaut Diablo 3 is coming to the Nintendo Switch later this year. The game, which was first released back in 2012, has seen numerous updates and additions over the years, and for the Nintendo Switch, Blizzard is promising that Diablo 3 will run at 60 frames per second, whether it's in handheld or docked mode, and it'll be 720p on the go or 960p when it's docked. Blizzard worked with Iron Galaxy to port its super successful action RPG to the Switch, and that studio was successful in bringing Skyrim to Nintendo's platform last fall. Dubbed Diablo 3 The Eternal Collection, the Switch version of the game will include the Reaper of Souls expansion, the Rise of the Necromancer pack, challenge rifts, local and online co-op, and it will do everything it can to become an addiction that you can't cure. And I am looking forward to playing this so much on the Nintendo Switch. It is one of those games that is difficult to put down and difficult to walk away from. Now you don't have to walk away from it. Now it will just follow you wherever you go. I think that this is, Blizzard hasn't worked with Nintendo. I think if we have to look all the way back to the Super Nintendo, I think that's the last time that Blizzard had stuff on Nintendo platforms. And I'm thinking of games like Blackthorn, which is so old, but I just think this is fantastic. I hope that this also means that there's the possibility of Overwatch coming to the Switch. This is a terrific game. It's very accessible, very addictive, and of course there's lots of reasons to kind of venture as deep as you can into the game, but also you want to play it again, and you also want to play it with friends. So much customization, and it's just going to be a great fit, and I feel like it's going to be a totally different audience, but this is really going to be a big success, I think, on the Nintendo Switch. I think the game and system is a perfect marriage. Even if this is an older game, even if the fans of Diablo have already shown up and checked it out somewhere else, I don't think that there's slightly different audiences there in some cases, and I think that there's going to be a lot of Switch players out there that are just excited to play something this grandiose and this well-produced, because, Blizzard works for decades, I think, on some of their titles. Diablo 3 came out in 2012, but it had a 10-year development cycle before it came out in 2012, so there's a ton of work in there and tons of great content. Can't wait. I think it is a perfect fit. Now, we're all going to have to wait a little longer to get stained by blood. Koji Igarashi has delayed his long-in-development kickstarted spiritual successor to Castlevania called Bloodstained to 2019. We've been waiting on this one for a while and have seen it at numerous events over the years, most recently as part of publisher 505's games collection of upcoming titles. The delay isn't the only thing we need to grapple with. Longtime PlayStation Vita supporters, sorry Greg Miller, have to deal with the gut punch that the Vita version has been canceled. So anyone that pre-ordered that version as part of the Kickstarter campaign will have to choose a different platform or ask for a refund. Both 505 and Igarashi-san have stressed that the reason for the delay is to improve the game, so we'll have to wait until next year to find out if the wait will be worth it. Now, is Kickstarter backing still worth it in 2018? Kickstarter, especially with video games, especially because I was speaking with somebody that's from the advertising world and the marketing world in the video game industry last week, and he says that he knows of no other product that markets so heavily on conjecture, on dreams, and that's what the games industry is built around. And let's not ignore the fact we all have those dreams that we're going to get lost in these great escapes, but so do the developers. But the marketing is massive, and Kickstarter is a new way to market in a way. I mean, you're asking for the trust that you're going to build to spec, but it is all speculation. It is all just hope, and I think we're seeing time and again that a lot of these kinds of dreams that are presented just get whittled away and become incredibly difficult. And I have to tell you personally, I've become more and more gun-shy about investing in game concepts really early on Kickstarter. And I feel like there has been a shift away, and a lot of developers have decided, well, let's just go early access then, and we'll include players in the development of titles, and they'll see exactly, what we're doing and how difficult it is, and they can help us kind of guide it to its finished state, which I think we'll talk a little bit about when we discuss Dead Cells with Jose later on. But it is very interesting, and the fact that Koji Igarashi, and I've done a panel with him at PAX, I did it last year, and he's terrific and very, very upfront about the fact that this Kickstarter stuff is not easy. You raise a certain amount of money, and you raise a tremendous amount, an exponential amount of expectation based on the revenue that you collect, but that revenue doesn't really keep a team paid for 5 years if they have to keep iterating and making it better. And the other thing, that we have to talk about here with as it pertains to Bloodstained is that there is just this wealth of incredible Metroidvania titles out there. We're going to be talking about one with Dead Cells, and I'm sure they're looking at the competition going, well, this can't just be a redo of Castlevania. It has to iterate. It has to kind of deliver something fresh that we haven't seen before. which is more pressure on this thing. I'm still excited. I love I love Koji. I always forget his last name wrong. It's Igarashi. I love Igarashi, and I am a huge fan of his work, and I can't wait to play Bloodstained when it's done, but it's frustrating, and I feel for him, and I feel for everybody that kickstarted, especially you Vita fans out there. Man, you got kicked in the balls. I feel.